I think yesterday was a holiday for the stock market in India, because I couldn't bear to see all of my investments go up and down, and I thought that that was going to be bad for my heart. It's a really interesting Friday for all of us to be in. It is Friday the 11th, not Friday the 13th, but it is one of the things that I wanted to just that's why I named this video of ours, market trumps tariffs, or so trumped by tariffs, or whatever the hell, man. I don't know. I think I'm pretty good at punning, but not very good at memory, since it's advancing age and all of that. But why don't you talk us through what we were going off camera, and just set up the context, and then maybe we can have a more informed discussion on stuff.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the tariffs that Trump has imposed on the countries has been the hot take. The stock markets all over the world have been going down. It has been a bearish sort of a scenario overall. But yesterday there was an uptick because Trump announced that he'll be giving a 90-day leeway for the countries before the tariffs are implemented. Now, this does not include three countries, which are China, Mexico, and Canada.
Yeah.
Uh, as you all know, that Mexico and Canada are like the arch enemies of Trump, and China has been the second superpower that has been taking over the world economy, and America wants to, get away from those chains. So, I mean, this on China, and this morning the news was that the tariff stand at 145% on China. So now this opens us up to where the markets are shaping, what the trade is moving towards, and what does this 90-day leeway actually mean for the trade setup. I think this is more of a segue for the countries to look at other options beyond US. It reduces the collateral damage that would have happened had the tariffs gone into effect immediately. And this has given some kind of a leeway for the stock markets to stabilize a little bit since the crash that happened a few days ago.
So
So what is your take on this?
yeah, so first of all, I'm no finance bro. I have no understanding of how markets shape up. I think my batchmate Sandeep Menon would be a good guest to have for us, who would explain it in great detail. What I found really, really interesting was, I don't know, but I've been, because I'm an academic who has enough friends on both the right side and the left side. I get very conflicting views on the same phenomenon that's happening. And one of the core things which struck me was, people talking about it as being market manipulation from the left side. And market manipulation means, like, yeah, if you're the president of a country and you have the ability to stop and start, and if that was your strategy to start with, so that people come to the table and talk and stuff like that, if you think that that was your strategy, then what you're doing is you're manipulating markets, right? So and therefore you have a lot to gain for yourself. So that was the conversation on the left side of the border. The right side of the border said, no, these are all plans. America has been in debt for the longest period of time, and therefore the storyline that they adopted was, okay, you know what, this had to be done. Trump is just the front. We can't keep having such a problem for crazy. Now the left says to this right one, that, you know what, the last time the US had a surplus instead of a deficit was in the Great Recession of 1930. So a surplus doesn't really work. Another really compelling argument about this from the left is, okay, something really interesting. The US exports high margin value products and imports low margin value products from China. So it's going to hurt the US much more. There was another argument saying that the US actually has customers which are going to pay the brunt of it, and the rest of it. Now, these are all the stories. Now, from the Trumpian side, this is all like ye shadyantra tha bhai. This was part of the plan, and this is all, he promised something at the polls, and this is what he said, and this is what he's doing. A lot of the people on the left are saying he's completely a moron. He doesn't understand what he's doing. I found two aspects really interesting, and then I'll leave it to you. I know this is a bit of of a rant, but the first, and no, I haven't had coffee, so this is genuine rant. The first one was the India thing, right? So I heard Shekhar Gupta on the print saying a few things like, I don't understand whatever, but I think for India, it might be an interesting kind of position to be in because it's least impacted, which seems to be showing out. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's a really interesting story. And the second story is, what does an individual do with their money in something like this, which is also becoming a story. Because it might be 90 days, but 90 days ke baad kya hoga, bhai? I don't know, right? So on to you. What do you think?
Okay, so for your first point, I actually agree with the right side. So Tulsi Gabbard, when the Trump government came into force, Tulsi Gabbard made the statement that America's first priority will always be America.
Mm,
And earlier, I mean, this is exactly how it should be. But earlier, what was happening was America was more making other countries as its consumer economy, which is exactly what China had been doing. Now look at what happened with the economies like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, what almost happened with India also. We were becoming a lot of consumer economy,
yeah,
right? And America has sort of been doing the same thing with Pakistan, making it as its base camp, or Vietnam, which are completely dependent on America. Now the problem with this was that companies manufacture goods in these smaller countries because of lower labor, lower taxes, and everything, and they sell to the American audience itself at a lower costs.
yeah,
Right now, what happens with this is the people in America don't get the jobs. American economy is not benefiting from the manufacturing of the American brands. The taxation is not happening in America. So the money is sort of an outflow from America for the American goods itself, right? So and the result of this has been that IMF has had to bail America a number of times in the past decade itself. Now, a similar parallel I'll draw what the left is trying to say with what India did with the Chinese apps and Chinese goods. We have a 30% custom duty on the Chinese imports. Now, initially there was a lot of collateral damage because most of the Indian products they were coming from China, and and they were being sold at a very minimal cost, and the Indian setup was becoming a completely consumer setup. Now, what happened with that was earlier there was a lot of hue and cry. Shekhar Gupta was one of those people who said the Indian economy will go for a toil because we have banned the Chinese goods and blah blah blah. Now what has happened now is we are the fastest growing economy. Our manufacturing setup has grown multifold. We are not just inviting the foreign. We are inviting foreign investments, not just becoming a market for the Chinese goods. We have FPIs coming from US, from Singapore, from Europe, all of these countries. So India is becoming like a global hub. America is trying to do the same thing where it's trying to stabilize its economy. I don't think that Trump is a moron. Trump is a very good businessman. Any businessman who's running a country will run the country like its own business. That means profitability, right? He's not thinking in terms of socialism or communism. He's thinking in terms of a capitalist economy, which which will definitely favor America in the longer run.
so that is, ladies and gentlemen, Jahnavi's story about the whole thing. Because see, the whole thing, Jahnavi, I love the way in which you put out your argument about Trump not being a moron. I don't. I'm in half a mind to call him a moron and half a mind to say, okay, maybe he's a bit of an underrated genius. So I genuinely don't know at this stage. My feeling, and this is really interesting, is like, here are a lot of Republicans and who have now started complaining about this. Okay, and till this time that they were completely for whatever Trump was doing, and brought the Republicans to power and stuff like that. And I see parallels to the India story as well when the BJP came into power. What happens is that when people say it's not about the money, it's about the principle, it is actually about the money. when
It is
people
also about money.
when people start getting impacted, their bottom line starts getting impacted, then they start like really getting really upset about the way in which things are. So Democrats are just talking about or people on the left, and the weird thing is that whatever Trump is doing is impacting the rest of the world, including India. So it is not a tin pot sort of dictator in Uruguay or something, who's like, if this happened like to a 10-pot dictator in Uruguay, we would laugh at this, right? Like, what is this guy doing, and does he know what he's doing? The whole weird aspect is that this is happening and it is impacting the rest of the world, and this is where storytelling has become really, really critical. Right? What are the stories that companies will tell their stakeholders in the next 90 days? What are the stories that stock markets will communicate to people, in individual investors, in the next 90 days? What
Yeah.
will, VCs do in the next 90 days? What will startups do in the next 90 days, based upon the fact that it is going to be a fairly volatile economy? Now, the story that you talked of, right, gives a certain level of certainty. Okay, this is what America is doing, this is what India is doing, etc., etc. And there is the other side. People will go into tribes and they will believe into their stories, and the way in which their money will flow will be based upon where their story goes. Do you think that that's correct?
Agree. And one more point on the storytelling bit, right? So I think not just the 90 days, but the implementation of these tariffs
Yeah.
has opened the world to the real, transparent meaning of the word globalization. Earlier, globalization just meant how many foreign brands, European brands or American brands do you have in your country? How
Yeah.
much of Western civilization you have in your country?
Yeah.
Now, the vernaculars, in the real meaning, the African countries, the Indian countries, the Sri Lankan, brands, the Sri Lankan brands, the Venezuelan brands, they will have an open market to each and every country of this world. And this is where the actual power of storytelling will come in, where you are building not just from the Western point of view or from the young target audience point of view. You're talking from an artisanal storytelling point of view, where the culture will actually matter, where the brands and their first principles will actually start mattering in this whole economy. So
This
this
is
is
such,
going to be
this is
very.
such a positive way to kind of wrap our conversation. I never thought we'll end up in this positive positive place, Janvi. I never thought. So kudos to you. I just wanted to say, maybe end with this. This is a quip which I've thought of. So Bag's Eye, the pattern to it. In I think 2000 or 2001 or whenever, Thomas Friedman wrote a book called "The World Is Flat," right?
Hmm.
And today, Trump has written another book which is called "The World Is Flattened." I don't know. on that on that happy note, wonderful. Let's go for it. Let's hope that the weekend treats us well.
Yeah. Have a happy weekend. Stock markets are closed, so chill out.